high school students. However, what we found is that teaching students these conjunctions, especially if you look at but and so, if you look at but, really what you're showing students is the language, or laying the foundation for the language of change of direction. So when students have to write argumentative pieces or essays, they have that language to present a different side or a counterclaim or make a rebuttal. But it all really starts with that conjunction but. So really the method is so scaffolded and it really builds upon each other. So, and you can see here, like we were used to seeing typical thesis statements, from kids like, I think, I feel, I think the New Deal saved the United States. In this essay, I will tell you why the New Deal worked or why it was good, in my opinion. So we got a lot of those type of responses from students until, there's our big, but until we started to see, and here's one of an argumentative essay written by Danny down the line here, you can see that eventually that changed for us because now students had that language to say, well, while some view the conquest of the Americas as a positive event, without question it had a negative impact. So they had that language, but again, it stemmed from that but, because, and so activity, and it all pretty much built from there. So that was very powerful. Even so, because so is laying out cause and effect. So again, so showing as a result, or therefore, consequently. So it's giving students that language to think about the effects of something or the result of something, which many of our students did not come to us writing about or thinking about necessarily. So is really powerful for that as well. Okay, and so, okay, all right, so we're going to have to move this along here. All right, okay. Sherry?
So I'm going to talk a little bit about subordinating conjunctions. So what you see here are the top 10 most frequently seen subordinating conjunctions in written text. And we teach these because, again, these are another written language structure that we want students to have. So normally in speech we wouldn't say, since I overslept, I was late to work. We would probably say I was late to work because I overslept. So we want students to learn to put that subordinating conjunction in the beginning of a sentence as a dependent clause. It also becomes an effective way for them to write a topic sentence later down the line. So you can see here an example in ELA, starting all these sentences with a subordinating conjunction and a dependent clause, and they build out the sentence from there. And appositives are another really heavy hitter strategy that we use. Appositives are basically a renamed noun. So it's a noun or a noun phrase or noun clause that describes another noun. And again, this is another written language structure that we don't typically use in our speech, and we want students to start using. So I wouldn't typically say Dina, comma, a great presenter, comma, is happy to be here today. But we want students to start being able to do that in their writing. So here you can see some examples.
And they'll use those as well as topic sentences.
Right, this is another of the ways that students will create topic sentences later. So here you have an example from social studies where students are filling in the appositive with a sentence that's completed already. Here they are just given the appositive, and they create the sentence around the appositive.
Mm-hmm. And that's Danny again, that we showed you in the beginning. So that's Danny's work on a test item. And content teachers really like this because, again, students have to provide multiple pieces of information for a reader, which many of our students do not keep the reader in mind. And so this really does encourage them to give more information. Mm-hmm. So, but yep. And then last on that note, one of our last, I don't know why it's not, why it's not moving. One of our last very, very powerful activities that we'll show you really quickly is sentence expansion. And again, speaking of not giving the reader more information, we are a very reader-centered approach. So in this activity, we give students what we call kernel sentences, which are just very simple sentences. They have a complete thought, but they're very simple. And then we take something like they thought, which usually we would see a lot of kids give us. And then when we would see those kind of sentences, we would say to kids, well, who fought? Why did they fight? Where did they fight? So they take this activity and they apply the question words to the kernel sentences to expand that original kernel. They don't have to use all the question words, but they can use some of them that apply to get a much more complex expanded sentence. So for example, we would give them a kernel sentence where we would say here, pyramids were built. And notice the formatting of the activity. what the student-facing document the students would get in front of them. The dotted lines are the keys for note-taking. So they would not write complete sentences here. Here they would just write some notes. So it's when, ancient times, where were they built, Egypt, and why, protect the body of a deceased pharaoh. And then you see this little puzzle analogy next to it. Students take all that information like a puzzle, they put it together, keeping the kernel intact, and they create a much more expanded sentence. So for example, pyramids were built would become, in ancient times, pyramids were built in Egypt to protect the body. The only thing they would ever be function words, to protect the body of the deceased pharaoh. And so, again, you can see here how that became a much more complex, expanded sentence. And then what you see here is that arrow that says when. And so we encourage students that when there is a when, to start with the when. And again, that is because that is a written language structure. 95% of the time, if you open up a news article or a book or the New York Times right now, you'll see that a lot of those sentences will start with when, because again, that is something that they'll see in written form. We may not speak like that, but that is definitely something that they will see in written text. So we encourage them to do that. And so again, here's Danny that we showed you earlier. So he's learning about the atomic bombs. So Truman dropped them. What, the atomic bombs, where, when, why. He takes all that information, keeping the kernel intact, and you get a much more complex sentence. In 1945, Truman dropped atomic bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki to force Japan to surrender. This activity is also so powerful because we will teach students to use this when they revise their work. This is really a very powerful tool to improve their metacognition. Students will eventually look at their own work and think sentence expansion. It will be synonymous with revision. Oh, I can add a who, I could add a where, I can add a why. And it's one of the number one ways that we teach teachers to give feedback to students. It's grounded in sentence expansion. It's very, very powerful. And you can see even in first grade what that looks like. So Michael in first grade is writing a pretty complex sentence for a first grader using 2 hours, starting with the when, and going from there. When students have worked on sentence work for a while and we're ready to move to a paragraph or a composition, we show them how to use a quick outline, which is the vehicle for a single paragraph. So here you can see in the quick outline, it's set up in a way that's very linear. It's very easy for students to replicate this when they have to on their own. It has a space for a topic sentence. Again, you see dotted lines. That would be the indicator for note-taking. And you can see how it basically works here. So students are writing a topic sentence, they're taking salient notes, and then they're transferring that over to a paragraph. This outline has been such an instrumental piece of a lot of our students' success because it really does help them plan their ideas, organize it, sequence, not be repetitive, because you see there's different lines for each detail, so they're not repeating themselves, and it really helps them visualize a beginning, middle, and end to their writing. So this outline has been very powerful. And in our schools, we don't tell kids just write anymore. They have to plan an outline first before drafting their paragraphs.
How many, remind me again, how many kids were at Newdorp? What's your enrollment?
Right now it's about 3,000.
3,000. And then you were doing this across grade level and across content area. So all teachers were doing the same thing?
Mm-hmm.
And
we started in 9th grade and then built to 10th grade, and then eventually now the entire school uses it. And I would say across curricula. So they have it in social studies, English, math, science, even physical education.
Okay.
Is using it.
And
art, electives.
Okay.
So, but and so just to show you really quick, we'll just end on this and wrap up just to show you the work. So here's Erica, and you can see what she wrote in the beginning of the year, and then you can see Erica by March of 9th grade. So here's Erica's quick outline that she did on a test about the Mongol Empire. You can see the note-taking that we explicitly teach students. We don't have time today to show it to you, but in a course we would show explicitly how we teach them to do this. And then you can see here how then that transfers over to Erica's paragraph by March. So Erica now has, and again, not perfect, but by March, big difference from September to March. So you see here a topic sentence. Here she has Genghis Khan, a powerful leader, which is the use of the appositive. The military was successful and well-trained because, that's the use of the conjunction. In addition, we explicitly teach students how to use transitions. Here you can see a lot of sentence expansion popping up because she's giving places and wheres and whens and whys. Obviously, the transitions, for example, And clearly, the New Dorp kids fell in love with clearly. I don't know why that was like their favorite concluding sentence, but clearly they were magnificent empire. You can still see some of the ELL mistakes appearing, but again, big difference from where she was in September. Same thing for Danny. Here's Danny around the same time, and you can see the same thing happening. Danny plans an outline about the Aztecs, and Danny's paragraph, again, much more coherent and cohesive than September. Same things appearing for Danny. Positives, although, this is one of our favorite sentences, although they were cannibalistic and practiced human sacrifice, that's directly a result of teaching subordinating conjunctions. The Aztecs had many achievements. In particular, here's the transitional phrases. However, Hernan Cortez, a Spanish conquistador, and you can see here, overall, the Aztecs led to destruction of armies and so forth. And that's where all the note-taking comes in here as well. So you can see.
And in this next slide, you'll see Danny's MPO. So the MPO is the multiple paragraph outline, and eventually when students have had lots and lots of practice with the quick outline, they move on to the multiple paragraph outline, which lets them plan a composition, an extended, essay. So here you can see Danny is citing textual evidence. He has used his thesis statement to drive the categories of his essay. So he has the positive and the negative, and he's broken his information down into those two categories, which will become the two body paragraphs of his essay. So we don't have time to really go into this. We wanted to make sure you see that this does, even though we focus a lot on the sentences, it does eventually build up to paragraphs and up to essays. It's all there, but it's all grounded in the sentence work.
And you can see on the MPO, there's a spot for intro and conclusion. We, again, explicitly teach Danny and the students how to write an intro and conclusion. So nothing is left for chance. Everything is very explicitly taught. They didn't wake up one morning and come to us and have that improved work. That writing was really a result of explicit writing instruction that was happening with fidelity in the classrooms that they were taking. And so that's really it for us. Our last slide is just showing all the little kiddies that we work with across multiple areas. And again, right now, the Writing Revolution is in multiple schools across New York City, Washington, D.C., Texas, Louisiana. So it's really starting to spread, because this is a skill that many of our students, regardless of the area, I think you could agree, desperately need. So at this point, I think we'll open it. Yeah, I think we'll open it up to. I think we have a hard stop soon, but we can open it up to a few questions.
We
and
do, yeah, and we've got and our classes are going to start in just a minute. But where do we go from here? Like so you've given us these strategies, but what do you think is the best way to get these implemented?
Right. So the next thing would be looking at a menu of options. First, we want to train what you saw now. We just skimmed.
Yeah,
surface.
absolutely. I know there's a ton more, right?
It's a lot more, and it's much deeper. And we just what schools that we do, especially with remote training, what we've done is offer schools a menu of option of getting the teachers trained. So we would actually have maybe hour and a half to 2 hour sessions where we would break down and focus on sentences, and then the next section, quick outline, revision, MPO, so that the teachers would have the training and the ongoing support. And a lot of the partnerships that we work with will have ongoing support where we can look at the work that's being created by the teachers and give pretty much instant feedback to what they're working on, so that we can be supporting them as they are working the method in and implementing it.
Okay, you know what I think we're going to do, just because we have to go, and I know you guys do too, because I know you got somebody else you're presenting to. Let me say goodbye. We're gonna chat really quickly, and then I will get back to you, and we'll figure out where to go from here. I love everything. I've already started to do the because button, so with my AP Lit kids even, and my regular seniors, and I've already seen a difference in their complex sentence structure. And the rest of this stuff looks really great. So thank you so much, and I will be in touch with you very shortly. I really appreciate your time, but I just want to have a chance to talk for a couple minutes before they have to leave.
Yeah. Bye,
Okay.
everyone.
Okay. Bye. Thank you. Okay. Let me do this. Okay. There we go. All right. Are you here? Can you hear us?